Hi, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Matches. We are back again with a special discussion episode on the recently concluded India versus South Africa series, which was a T20 format. And today we have guest authors of Beyond the Matches and a special guest joining us. So, before we move on to talk about what went down in the South Africa series, here's a quick note for everyone to please subscribe to our channel and join the discussion in the comment section with your thoughts and views post the discussion. So, the recently concluded SA series was washed out in the last match, but the first four games did not fail to give us a good, thrilling performances from each of the sides. With South Africa winning the first two matches and India winning the next two, the series is now tied 2-2, with the last match being washed out. So, moving on to introducing our panel members for the today's discussions. So, we have Prakhar Sachdev, who is a guest author at Beyond the Matches. He's a sports buff and he mainly types out live sports for earning. We have Vaibhav Tripathi, who is also a guest author at Beyond the Matches. He's a life sciences student and is currently writing for 5 different websites. He is an avid cricket fan. And we have a guest appearance from Robin, who is a avid cricket follower and not only just writes about the game, but he also plays cricket. And he loves this game so much that he has invested a lot into the game. And today he is joining us to talk about the South Africa series. So moving on to the matches that went down. So in the first T20I, India scored 211 for 4 in 20 overs, and South Africa went on to win the game by scoring 212 for 3 in just 19.1 overs. The match had some really good performances by Indian batters Ishan Kishan and Shreyas Iyer. We also saw some good bowling from Parnell and Rabada. Vanderdussen and David Miller were standout performers for South Africa, and Avesh Khan, Akshar Patel, and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar had given their best to stop the rampage from the South Africa batters. In the second T20I, however, India did look to change the course, but failed miserably as they scored just 148 for 6 in 20 overs, and South Africa reached the score and won the game by 4 wickets. In the third T20I, finally, after all the toiling hard in the field and in the nets, India saw the first win as they scored 179 for 5 in 20 overs and restricted South Africa to 131 for 10 in 19.1 overs. India went on to win by 48 runs, and the standout performance was by Harshal Patel, who picked up 4 wickets in his bowling spell. In the fourth T20I, India won by 82 runs, which was the highest margin against South Africa, as they went on to restrict and bowl out South Africa for just 87 runs in 16.5 overs. We saw some great performance by Avesh Khan, Yuzvendra Chahal, Harshal Patel, and also we have Dinesh Karthik, who went on to score 55 runs in 27 balls and put India to a good total. But if you go back to see all the 5 games, all the games that were played by India and South Africa, we can see a lot happened in the 5 matches. It was not just about what was happening on the field, a lot was happening off the field with change of captaincy just before the match day, to see a lot of injury concerns for our players, and to see how South Africa had put everything aside and gave their best despite what was going to happen, that is the weather that was out of their control. So if we move through the first 4 matches, we can go on to safely say that it was a match of who handles the pressure, who puts the pressure, and who actually performs under that pressure. Now, when we talk about pressure, what everyone thinks is it is a very negative aspect. But let me tell you, it is not. The last 5 overs were the space, that is, the death overs was the space where most of the match had actually changed. We could see David Miller going all guns blazing under the pressure but that Indian bowling unit had created. So to see that happen, it gives you a very different perspective on what pressure means. Some people would thrive to be under that kind of pressure, If you see moving away from the series, we see Virat Kohli and everyone who like this high challenging situations, who like this kind of pressure to give their best. So it is the same with our bowlers. If you see Harshal Patel and everyone under pressure, just with Bumrah, they go on to actually perform well under pressure. You give them the death bowling, you give them the last 2 overs, and you see a very different bowler coming out from there. So, pressure should not be taken as a negative aspect until it is actually affecting you in a negative way. So, to understand this better, I'm just going to put across one example that people say that with responsibility comes a lot of pressure and lot of changes happens. But if you see, responsibility does add to the pressure, but it is how you are going to pursue it. In one of our previous episodes about IPL also, we were discussing about how you perceive the pressure is how the pressure behaves with you. So similarly, if you see the South African batters, for that matter, were actually taking the pressure positively. We did not see them panic. We did not see them lose out on their game in the first two matches, which were crucial because our bowlers were doing their best. There was nothing else from where I see that they could have done to change the game. They were putting their best foot forward on the given day. They were doing their best to bowl to the field, pick up wickets, but it was not just happening. And the only difference that I found when watching the games again was the approach from the South Africa batting unit. They were not ready to give up. They were trying their best till the last over, and that is where India might have lacked in the first 4 matches. If you go on to say all the 4 matches, because if you see, India started off really well. It was in the middle when they started losing their flow of the game, and again in the end we had Dinesh Karthik and Hardik Pandya giving their key factors out there, putting the best shots and smacking the ball out of the park. So it was something different that if you see how Dinesh Karthik plays under pressure and how everyone else plays under pressure. So today, the main aspect of the whole discussion is pressure, how you are going to perceive it, and that is exactly how the pressure will play out on your game. So if you are an athlete, if you are a cricketer, a bowler, a batter, wicket keeper, no matter which role you play on the field, you need to know one thing is how you are going to see the pressure that the opponent is putting on you. Are you going to be bogged down by it, or are you going to see it as a challenge and put yourself out there? So when you go on hit the nets again the next time around, remember, prepare to challenge the pressure and not be bogged down by it. So before we move on to the next section of the episode, let me just welcome Robin, Vaibhav, and Prakhar once again to the episode. If you guys can say a few words, let's start with Prakhar.
Okay, so yeah, South Africa India T20I series was interesting, and the way India lost the first 2 matches, the- and going to the third match, it was a desperate situation for India to keep the series alive. And the way India lost the first 2 matches, it did not even. I was feeling that India will not be able to compete in the third match and eventually lose the series. But way India went on to win the third and subsequently the fourth match, it kind of showed, yeah, uh, the winning mentality in the team and how well. And these are, and we should note that these players who played against South Africa, they are not regulars, and most of them would will not even be in the Indian squad. Many of them, not most, but many of them will not be in the Indian squad for the T20 World Cup, and still they made the most of the opportunity and helped team bounce back. I would have actually loved how they would have played in the fifth match, and because uh, that's when they were actually the expectations had risen after the third and the fourth match. Expectations were high, and India were actually not batting that well just before the rain struck. India were under a lot of pressure. They had lost both the openers quickly, and I guess almost half of the overs were done. And I would have loved to see how India would have responded uh, in that kind of situation and how that match would have panned out. But unfortunately, that was not to be. But yeah, some positive signs from the series and a few interesting players that I will talk about later.
Definitely, very rightly said that India had a lot of key players rested out, which was also a challenge for the Indian unit. And to see how they actually performed through that thing, like having just Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, not his partner Jasprit Bumrah in the bowling tandem that actually happens when Bhuvi and Bumrah are bowling in the death overs. So it was interesting to see how the new players, the debutants, upped their game. We will talk about this further in our episode. Let's move on to Robin and let's hear a few thoughts about the series from you.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. Good to be finally here. So, yeah, looking forward to the chat. So, my thought about the series was that South Africa really did well, putting India under pressure initially, winning two games, two back-to-back games. So that wasn't expected at all. Even that India were playing a second string squad. So yeah, we can say that second string squad. So yeah, but the way South Africa played in the first two T20Is was just brilliant, and India's comeback in the latter two T20Is was equally brilliant as well. So yeah, we missed on a classic series decider, but yes, the series was absolutely a thrilling one. So yeah, that was quite good to watch as a viewer.
Indeed. I think all of us would agree on this that we missed on the series decider. It would have been one crazy night in the series to witness how both the teams are going to go with their best to win the trophy. Let's come to Vaibhav, your thoughts on the series, how it went by for you.
So for me, as teams are building towards the T20 World Cup, which will take place in Australia later this year, so it was more of a preparatory series, I would say. And kudos to both the organizing boards, Cricket South Africa and BCCI, because they in the busy schedule, as we know that cricket in India it doesn't happen in June. In the month of June, we are actually overseas. So kudos to them, the boards, that they have managed to get sometimes a window for this series, and we got a 5 match T20I series, which is very rare. Generally it is a 3 match or 2 match affair, not a 5 match. So first kudos to both the organizing bodies. Now coming to the series from Indian perspective, it was more about testing their bench strength. As Prakhar and Robin said, the team was a second string side, and still I would say that that team can beat any side in the world. It is as strong. It is that much strong, and it was more about when Virat, Rohit Sharma is not there. So the backup players, it was an audition for the backup players, that if these guys, if they get injured or some unfortunate mishap happened, then they should be ready. They will be like, now I think Ishan Kishan can be considered as a third opener after KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma. So this, from Indian perspective, it was more about testing the bench strength and the players. That's why Rahul Dravid didn't change the playing 11 throughout the course of the 5 match, because he wanted to make sure that everyone gets a equal amount of games before we get into the World Cup scheme of things. And now from the South African perspective, it was more about getting the playing 11 right, because South Africa came here with their full strength squad. This is the full strength squad, and unlike Indian team, you will find most of these guys playing in the World Cup in Australia as well. Unfortunately, Markram got injured. Otherwise, he would have played all the 5 games. So for South Africa, it was more about fixing their 11, because there are still some doubts over the players, that just like who will play bat at number 6. Like David Miller will bat at 5. Van Dusen is your number 4. Markram, if he'll comes in, where he will bat. So there are some doubts in the middle order. Top order is sorted. So it was more about fixing the 11, and unfortunately, as Robin said, we couldn't get the series decider in So yeah, from spectators' point of view, it was a disappointing thing not to get the final match and not to get the result of the series. But overall, it was a competitive series and thoroughly enjoyed a lot.
So let's start with our first question for the episode to the panel. That is, let's talk about one moment, one standout moment from the series for you individually. Like if we go back to all the four matches, any moment that you felt like, oh, this is something that I did not imagine happening, or just like this is a wow moment for you. So let's start with our guest, Robin. Any moment that stood out for you in the entire series?
Yeah, so it was from the first T20I when Rasi Vanderdussen started off really scratchily. He was not going anywhere, looked in all sorts, wasn't timing the ball at all. So, yeah, and the way he covered it up in the latter half of his innings and just thrashed away all the Indian bowlers. Was hitting sixes at will in the later half of his innings. So yeah, that was a standout moment for me, and that gave the Proteas a head start in the series. So yeah, a crucial knock as well, and yeah, good to see Rasi doing well.
Amazing. What about you, Prakhar? A moment that stood out for you in the series?
Okay, for me, the moment that stood out was Avesh Khan's spell in the fourth match. So he was under the pressure. After the first three T20 matches, he was the India's only frontline bowler, if we discount Hardik Pandya, who had not picked up even a single wicket. And I was having a very strong feeling that he has not bowled, and he had went for a plenty of runs in the first T20 match as well. So considering those factors, I had a strong feeling that he would be replaced either by Umran Malik or Arshdeep Singh or a spinner in form of Ravi Bishnoi. But uh, Team India did not change their playing 11 throughout the five matches, and he responded so well in the fourth T20I that he picked up four wickets. And at the end of the match, he dedicated his match winning spell to his father, whose birthday was on that day. So it felt good, and it showed that he can bounce back if under a lot of pressure. Yeah, he is making things tough for selectors. And although there was a lot of hype around Umran Malik, and people were expecting that Umran Malik might get a chance against South Africa, but Avesh Khan with that spell has more or less kind of delayed Umran Malik's debut for India. So yeah, that Avesh Khan spell and he dedicating those four wickets to his father was my worth remembering moment and my takeaway moment from the series.
Sweet. That was actually a very sweet moment to witness as fans also. So let's come to Vaibhav, the third panelist. Which was that one moment that stood out for you in the series?
So one moment to pick, I think that will be Bhuvneshwar Kumar's spell in Katak in the second T20I, especially the way he bowled with the new ball up front in the power play overs. I think it was fantastic. Starting with the first wicket itself, the Riza Hendricks wicket, the nip backer, it came off the seam, knocked him over, knocked his off stump. Then the second wicket, Dwayne Pretorius, he outfoxed uh, Dwayne Pretorius with the knuckle ball. That was a change up. So he bowled, even though the ball was, the assistance was there, the ball was swinging, the conditions were favorable, still that's where the experience of Bhuvneshwar Kumar came into play. That he knew Dwayne Pretorius is a pinch hitter. He's being used as a pinch hitter. He will come and he will try to slog the ball. And the leg side boundary was a long one. So he bowled a knuckle ball towards the stump. That's where he got him out with the knuckle ball. Then he came in back in the middle overs, got the wicket of Razi Vanderdusen, same as Riza Hendricks got out. It was an again a nip backer on the off stump. Then the last one was Wayne Parnell, I think, if I'm not wrong. Then the last wicket of his was Wayne Parnell. He finished with the figures of four for 13. Unfortunately, India lost the match, but I think that spell really that was the best spell of this series. If you will ask me, then this was the best spell I've seen in the series.
In there, and there were a lot of praises happening for that spell because It was one of the crucial spells for India. So I think all the fans out there listening to the episode would also agree to this, that there were a lot of standoff moments in this uh, series. Like there were so many things that if we look back on, we will see that the little changes in the way the ballers were being switched, the roundups that were being made, the way the partnerships were being built. I think everything was standing out in its own way when it was crucial and the most important moment of the game. So, so if you have any of the moments of the game that stood out for you, please let us know in the comments below, and we'll be very happy to hear out your favorite moments in the series. So, moving on to the next question, that is, which player specifically impressed you in the series? It can be from India, South Africa, and baller, batter, wicket keeper, anyone who impressed you the most in the series. Let's start with Prakhar.
Okay, so as I said, the player that impressed me was Avesh Khan, but I have a couple of more points to add on. Somehow I feel somewhere in the series, yes, people will say why to, and I myself previously have said on this platform that why to tinker with a winning combination, but somehow I felt that India should have given at least a game or two to either Arshdeep Singh or Umran Malik. And why? Because at least they would have started feeling a part of the team, because you never know which, given the tight congestion, tight schedule, I just India will now play in a week after, just a week after finishing the T20I series against South Africa. They're about to play two T20 against back in short space of time against uh, Ireland, and then uh, they will tour. The white ball team will play against England, and then they will tour to West Indies. So it's a very packed schedule, and you never know which of these frontline bowlers can pick up an injury. And you should, and we know that India opened their T20 World Cup campaign in a very high pressure situation in a match against Pakistan. So in that, and giving, and if we don't have a bowler, frontline bowler in Mohammad Shami, Jasprit Bumrah, or Bhuvneshwar Kumar ready, or Harshal Patel or Avesh Khan picks up injury, then you don't want a young bowler like Umran Malik or Arshdeep Singh making their debut in such a high pressure or a high profile match like Pakistan. And then if they go for runs, it will damage their confidence. There's no coming back for a very long time. So I guess hopefully they play against Ireland, and they should be made a part of the team by giving them at least a few games. I hope that happens against Ireland or later in West Indies.
All right. So I think the player that impressed you the most was Avesh Khan, and
Yeah.
really glad to hear your thoughts about how workload management needs to be done and how everything needs to be planned out. Let's move on to Vaibhav. Which is that one player who impressed you the most in the series?
I think I just talked about him in the defining moments of the series, and he was the player of the series. He was named as the player of the series for the second consecutive time against South Africa. Last time when we toured South Africa, I think then also he was named as the man of the series. And again, so no prize for guessing. It's Bhuvneshwar Kumar again. I think he was the talking point just before the series, that now with just no Jasprit Bumrah being there, Harshal Patel, yes, he's going there. He's definitely he'll be one of our lead bowlers in Australia for the T20 World Cup. But what about Bhuvneshwar Kumar? Since Deepak Chair is injured and he will be taking few more weeks, I think 5 to 6 weeks to recover from the injury. So now who will be the power play bowler who will accompany Jasprit Bumrah and Harshal Patel? Because I think these two are certainties for the T20 World Cup. So uh, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, prior to the start of the series, he was a talking point. Then what will happen? What is the future of Bhuvneshwar Kumar? He did bowl well, as I said in the same in the IPL series as well, that he was bowling well in the IPL. As you could see, he was nailing the Yorkers well, but he was very unfortunate not to get as many wickets as Kagiso Rabada, Avesh Khan, or other pacers. So, but again, the if you can't take quality out of the player, and that's what sorry, Bhuvneshwar Kumar showed in the series, that if you have the experience, you just need to back your ability, and you just need to do what you do best. And that's what he did in the series. He was not bothered about what are the what are people talking about him. He didn't bother about that. And the best part about this series was he found his swing. He didn't swing. He wasn't swinging that much in the T20I series. Sorry, in the IPL, but he got that swing in this series. Obviously, that conditions were favorable in Cuttack, you will say, but again, you need skill, you need that art to swing, and Bhuvneshwar certainly has that art. So I think it's a massive boost for India. To get Bhuvneshwar Kumar back in form in white ball cricket, especially in T20 cricket, considering that World Cup is just around the corner. So yeah, good sign. So Bhuvneshwar Kumar was the player of the series and was the best man to watch out for me in the series.
Absolutely. I would just like, before we move on, I'd just like to highlight on 2 points that Vaibhav rightly mentioned was he didn't let the outside noise affect his performance. Like he was being bashed right, left, center when he could not perform in the first 2 games to that potential. And when they saw him pick up 4 wickets, the entire narrative had changed. And to see that, you see a good swing that happened in how people and how fans actually viewed his performance. So that, and secondly was about like the pitch offering you assistance, but it is your skill set. Like if you are not skilled enough to take advantage of what the pitch is offering, what the pitch is offering has no value to it, right? So if you do not hold that skill set, if you are not confident about your own uh, capabilities and your ability to do something, then no matter how many opportunities you have, you will never grab onto it. You will never be able to maximize it to your potential, to take advantage of that opportunity. So something to ponder upon from Bhuvaneshwar's 4 match run, that is how to block the white noise and how to actually put 50% of your skill and 50% of your opportunity together to get a very good result. So let's move on to Robin and let us know about the player that impressed him the most in the series.
Yeah, so there are actually two players. So first is Henrik Klaasen. So the way the way he played a match being knock in the second T20I, if I recall correctly, and he did well in the third and fourth T20Is as well. So yeah, Klaasen wasn't a regular in the side, and he wasn't getting that good form as well with him. So yeah, it was quite nice to see him do well, and he won the game for South Africa, gave them a 2-0 lead in the series. So yeah, him performing at was is a crucial thing for them as well going ahead into the World Cup, as he at least South Africa should know that there is someone after David Miller who can win the games for them. So yeah, that's a good thing for them. And the second player is Ishan Kishan, because how his IPL went and after that how he performed in this series is really commendable, and really good to see as an Indian fan, hoping to see him do well in the upcoming games as well whenever he gets the chance, and hopefully do well in the shorter format as well, because his temperament is really good for T20I cricket. He just attacks from ball one and keeps on attacking. So yeah, that's a really good sign for us going ahead into the series in other series as well. So yeah, and especially in the World Cup. So yeah, these two players stood out for me.
Interesting how everyone has different players to talk about, which actually highlights the point that there were so many players who impressed a lot of us out here. So again, if you have any other player in mind who impressed you, then definitely let us know in the comments. Let's keep the discussion going because we have a major World Cup coming up. So before we move on to the last question of the episode, uh, anyone wants to add anything, Vaibhav?
Yeah. So just like Robin said, he has two players who impressed him a lot in the 5 match T20I series. I just want to add one player, just to
Yeah.
want to give him an honorable mention, and that player is Keshav Maharaj. Because when you say Keshav Maharaj, then you immediately can picturize him in white. I'm not saying white ball cricket, but in white clothes, that is test cricket. And Keshav Maharaj, the way he bowled in this series, I think not many people expected him to bowl in such a manner in T20 cricket, because in T20 cricket,
Hmm.
Tabraiz Shamsi is South Africa's lead spinner. But in this series, he was benched. Tabraiz Shamsi was benched because he was unable to create that much impact in that 4 games that he played. So that's why he was benched for
Hmm.
1 game, I think. And Keshav Maharaj played all the games, and then he led the side for in Temba's absence. So that really adds the value that he's a leader in the team, and also he's the one spinner who will give you that consistency and that discipline. Because what Keshav Maharaj brings in, he's a test bowler, so obviously that discipline is there, unlike Tabraiz Shamsi. So I'm very happy to see Keshav Maharaj bowling in T20 cricket and proving his critics wrong, because he was when he was brought into the team, he was named as why South Africa has been investing him in the shortest version of the game, and now I'm very happy to see him that he has repaid the trust of the selectors.
Amazing. So there's one thing that I see that has happened a lot in this series is a lot of them has been in the space where they have been looked down on. Their abilities have been questioned. They have been criticized left, right, center, not left any room to actually put out a good side of them on field. And to see them get over these challenges, like from external, internal, what is happening on field, everything, and giving their best performance and actually um, giving a standout performance, not just their best, but also standing out with that performance. It's very impressive. Like if anyone wants to go back and see all the 4 games and find some motivation, I think you have a pool of players to look out for. So before we move on to the last question, there is this one disclaimer for all the panelists because there's a very fun question and I don't want to take much of anyone's time on this one. So with no questions, no explanations, okay, you do not get to explain your answer to the next question. You have to name 2 players that India should definitely have in the playing 11 for their World Cup that is coming very soon. So, any 2 players that you feel India should not miss out on. And I just need the names, no explanations, no questions, nothing. So, it's a quick fire round. So, we'll start with Robin, followed by Prakhar, and then Vaibhav. So, can we have two names from each of you? Robin,
Yeah, so for me, it will be Ishan Kishan and Harshal Patel.
Prakhar,
Yuzvendra Chahal and Dinesh Karthik.
interesting. Vaibhav,
Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Yuzvendra Chahal.
amazing. So, we have 6 players, 5 players, I think, because Yuzvendra Chahal has been repeated twice. So I think you guys have played a little safe on this one to pick up players who are definitely going to go up the playing 11 squad for the World Cup. So let's hope for the best that India picks up a great team for the World Cup, and this time around we get it back home and we don't have another heartbreak to go through. But before the World Cup, we have the upcoming India versus England fifth test match, which had been postponed. So stay tuned, and we'll be covering that on our Beyond the Matches Twitter handle. So do give us a follow on our socials. That is Beyond the Matches on Instagram and Facebook, Beyond Matches on Twitter, and subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button below. And also, if you want to stay notified with all our upcoming videos, click on the bell icon. So do like, share, and subscribe. And our individual socials will be mentioned in the description box below. So don't forget to check out our handles and give us a follow. You can connect to us on our individual socials. As well as if you have any feedback or anything, you can mention in the comments below, or you can email it to us, or just put a message to the social handles, that is direct message, or mention us in any of the post in the comments that you want to send us a message, and we'll get back to you shortly. Thank you so much for listening to the episode so far. And thank you so much for all the panel members who have been here for this discussion. It has been very insightful and very fruitful discussion to talk about a very interesting series that recently concluded. We look forward to what happens in the last test match, which would also be the decider match to see which way the uh, series goes for us after a break. So stay tuned and see you all soon.